across the street, cause precious. Moving through the Cleveland heat now, precious. And taking lights and all the kicks are so precious. But you know I was shitting bricks, cause I ain't precious. Make me wanna make me make it. Oh, so mean. He's got the Fifth and Euclid Avenue. What's real? Precious. Hotel still incoming into view. How? It's a pity that you didn't bruise my hip, cause I'm precious. You shouldn't let your manners slip. You're too precious. Make me wanna make me make it. Oh, oh, we're gonna bound and bound and bound and bound and bound to show it. Oh, we want to do it, do it, do it, do it, do it on the pavement. Oh, baby, I'm gonna have a baby. Oh, we want to do it. Oh, do it all night. My annual imperial, you're so. Now Howard the Duck and Mr. Stressful stayed precious, trapped in a world that they never made. But not me, baby, I'm too precious to have fuck off. Make me wanna make it. Oh, it's so mean.
Hi, I'm John DeVore. Welcome to the channel. Today's a record review. Two records, actually. Two records that I believe are two of the greatest and most important debut albums ever. Both quite critically acclaimed, but I don't know that they really get enough credit, in my opinion. The first of the two records, Pretenders' debut album, The Pretenders. No, just Pretenders. Right. Chrissie Hynde is The Pretenders, essentially. This came out in 1980, and it is an absolute powerhouse that came out in 1980 and utterly blew my high school freshman mind with the opening track, Precious, in which Chrissie Hynde clearly tells everyone to fuck off. It's a powerhouse record from beginning to end. She wrote all the songs except for there's one cover by Ray Davies, Stop Sobbin', Stop Your Sobbin'. Ray Davies from The Kinks. I think this is just an amazing version of it, if anything better than the Kinks version, in my opinion. But every single song on here is really strong, catchy. This album came out and people just didn't know what to make of it. Here was Chrissie Hynde, this girl from Ohio via London, just stepping in and utterly embarrassing all these established bands with the power, imagination, creativity, and visceral directness of these songs compared to the other shit that was out there. I think to some extent she made a lot of guys just feel uncomfortable with her really frank lyrics about sex and misogyny and it was a true landmark record that is awesome, absolutely, and well, now these days very listenable, not maybe as shocking as it was when it came out. Great sounding. There's nothing not to love about Pretender's debut album, and the beginning of a really long, epic, and tough journey for Chrissie Hynde. This particular band with these members, guitar, bass, guitar, drummer, and there's Chrissie, only lasted for 2 records before these 2 guys died of drug overdoses in the early 80s. But that didn't stop her. She came out with what I believe is her best-selling record, maybe, Learning to Crawl, right after those 2 guys died. And she has managed to keep going all of this time. Just a unstoppable force and just incredible inspiration. Chrissie Hynde. The other record is, I guess, related in a way. It is the debut album of P.J. Harvey. P.J. Harvey Dry. Now, this record came out in 1992. So Pretenders came out in 1980 when I was a freshman in high school. A very formative and important time in one's life, in mine anyway. And P.J. Harvey Dry came out at another important time in my life. Ever since I was a kid, I've always known that I was going to live in New York for some reason. I grew up in Massachusetts, but I had an aunt and uncle who lived in Manhattan, and so we would visit all through the 70s and 80s, and so I always had a sense that I was going to, after college, I was going to move to New York and live there. And I took a little detour. I did, in fact, move to New York City after college, but after less than a year, about almost a year, I hightailed it out to LA, where I planted myself for almost 3 years. And it was fun, but I absolutely never fit in to LA. Very different vibe. Nothing against the city, but it just wasn't for me. And so in 1992, I moved back to the city. And this is the first record. This is the music that I sort of remember being around and being important to me when I got back. Like Chrissie Hynde's first record, Pretenders, it is a powerhouse. P.J. Harvey is an incredible talent. This record, so all songs written by her. She is the guitar player on this. Actually, great guitar playing. Fairly innovative, very bold. It has actually, I was talking to a friend of mine, Michael Livornia, about this record just a couple of days ago, and he mentioned that her singing and guitar playing on these early records reminded him of Mississippi blues style guitar playing, and I definitely hear that in the relationship of her guitar playing to her singing and her presentation. Totally makes sense to me. Just a bombast that essentially just took the world by storm. For me, I mean, she's clearly standing on the shoulders of the greats like Chrissie Hynde, like the Breeders, Kim and Kelly Deal and Tanya Donnelly. But this, for me, in my opinion, this is the record that totally kicked down the doors of the record industry and paved the way for an amazing period of dominating female rock artists, with the most famous being Liz Phair with Exile in Guyville, but certainly Alanis Morissette and plenty of others that followed. But this is the kick in the male music industry's balls that was needed and ushered in that amazing era. This also, for me, so when I got back to New York City, I was not a musician. I was not a musician at all up until around 1996. And that was when a friend of mine in New York City ran into a good guitarist in a bar and decided that they wanted to start a band. And I guess the two of them knew a bass player but nobody could come up with a drummer. And so my friend knew that I was a really good air drummer. I was, all through middle school, I was known for being able to air drum to all of John Bonham's drum parts on Led Zeppelin songs. And I guess in some sense, maybe that's decent training, as long as you can do it visually accurately. But anyway, he offered me the gig, and so I had to suddenly learn how to play drums. And so I grabbed my Sony Walkman and made cassettes of important and or great drum tracks that I would then rent time in a studio down the street from me in the East Village, Context Studios. I would rent time on a drum kit there and just put that tape on and just play drums to these songs. And a number of songs, Ellis's drumming on this is just incredible. I loved it, and I continue to love the drumming on these songs, the way he plays through the one, and just bold, really aggressive and powerful drumming. Songs like Sheila and the Gig and a couple of the others definitely made their mark on that tape and on my drumming, what little there was of it, all through the 90s. Played with a few bands in the East Village. Had a fucking amazing time. Something I recommend to anyone if they have the inclination and the opportunity to be in a performing band. Do it. It's great. Even just being in a band with a rehearsal space, playing music with other people is an amazing and very nourishing experience. Highly recommended. Highly recommended record. And lastly, I thought that today I would just kind of do a fun little trick and put on, I'm going to switch lenses on the camera that's taking this video right now. So normally the lens that I have on my Nikon for these videos is my favorite 50 millimeter. 50 millimeter lenses are sort of considered it's like a standard focal length because it's a focal length that very closely mimics the human field of vision, meaning that when you shoot a picture or video with a 50 millimeter lens, generally speaking, what is in the frame is similar to what a human field of view would be seeing if they're not, moving their eyes or moving their heads around. But I thought it would be fun to swap in a much wider lens. A wider lens is going to give us a much wider field of view, just so that you guys can get a sense of, more of a sense of where we are in my office called the Monkeyhaus. And so let's switch that lens up with some video magic like this. And welcome to the 14 millimeter view of Monkeyhaus, my office. Hi-fi over there, classical and opera records to the side there. Behind me are the jazz albums. There's my desk back in the corner there with the standing chair. Cassettes, can you see the cassettes on there? I think you can see the cassettes on that wall. Anyway, thank you for watching the video. Hope you liked it, and I'll see you at the next one. Bye.
I've been trying to show you over and over. Look at these, my childbearing hips. Look at these, my ruby red, ruby lips. Look at these, my work-strong arms. And you've got to see my bottle full of charm. I lay it all at your feet. You turn around.